This is Nita with Prophetic Sword. The Lord put on my spirit, a book a couple weeks ago that I got out of my father's collection, and it's called The American Heritage of History of the Presidency. See, and it's a very interesting book. Let's see if I can get that better. It's a very interesting book, and it came from my father's collection, and he was a very patriotic man. And it was written by Marcus Cunliffe, and the editors are American Heritage, the magazine of history. So the things that I'm going to refer to come from this book. They are not all my words. They come from this book. So Marcus deserves the up for this one, the thumbs up for this one. But in here, there's an article called The New Roof. And here we see George Washington and throng of people, and the article is called The New Roof. And it's about a day in Philadelphia on June 21st, 1788, where there was a great big convention and a celebration. And there were ships. It was a independence celebration. We were independent. And so here we've just had a new independence because now we're independent. We do not have the shadow of other countries trying to tell us what to do from the old administration. We have the new. And we chose what we wanted, and we fought for it in prayer, and now the Lord has brought it forth. David chose God. He chose the love of God above everything else, and he fought all his life like that. And he was a giant slayer. George Washington was a giant slayer. I mean, if he'd ever been caught, they would have hung him. English would have hung him. His family, he always had to think about his wife and his two children. There was always something going on around him. He had to fight, and he had to think about what he was doing, and he was a prayer warrior. So I see that all in President Trump, and I saw George Washington in his life, given all he had, and I see President Trump doing the same thing. But both men had something and King David had something very important in common. They were all men of God, and they were all anointed to do the jobs they're doing. So I'm glad that our president has put his mantle on and walked forward. I feel for him and his family, but I think that things are going to be much better for them. And I really truly believe, because of their belief in the God, their family is going to flourish, and they're going to do much better. And our country and the world is going to be better for it, but only with prayer and obedience to God. Now, on this particular day, and from this article, A New Roof, there were people out on the harbor with colorful banners, and they were talking about independence. Where have we seen this? We see this in Mar-a-Lago and off in the Gulf all the time in Florida. And also we see another thing was it said at this particular celebration there was the pendants flying with the ships over the ships. They had pendants on them, so we've seen those colorful pendants with the ships out in the harbor for Trump. And we heard, and they had bells ringing. They haven't been able to stop our churches from ringing the bells. Guns booming. They haven't been able to take our guns. Speeches. They haven't been able to take our freedom of speech. And a federal possession that was 1.5 miles long. And certainly we have seen that not only at the rallies, but everywhere Trump goes. All over the world, they love him. But it's because he has the light of Jesus in him. And without that, he would not be what he is. He would not be. The same thing with George Washington. The same thing with the great presidents like Ronald Reagan. And presidents like Abraham Lincoln. We're talking just great people. And then there are other great people that aren't presidents. Like I often think of Martin Luther King and John and Bobby Kennedy. And I think about Robert F. Kennedy now, Jr., and his walk to do what's good. And I'm so proud that he came over to be with Trump and to do something that we really need, which is watch over our food and what we eat and our environment. So you're going to see things happen over and over again from history. So, but one of the things that was really cool, and I want to say it, and I don't want this to be too long, is the procession that happened. It included all the working class. It included painters and brick makers and printers and watchmakers, and I mean all the way down to the dishwashers were in that celebration that day. It was not, of course, dishwashers are not a down job. I wash dishes all the time, and I don't consider myself down. But anyway, I'm talking about down the list. So there was much. There were porters. There were, carvers and gilders. There were copper makers. There were, and they also, I think that word is coopers. Coopers. I don't know exactly what coopers did, but they must have been important. All right, so plane makers, and I have a feeling that has to do with smoothing out wood. The whip manufacturers, and I don't know exactly what that meant. Did that mean just making whips that you use with horses? I don't know. And but at that time they were very important. The coach makers, the blacksmiths, and the white smiths, and the nail smiths, and the bell bangers. And I have no idea what all these different things are. I would think that banging a bell would be making a bell with it, in a shop, making those bells. Coach makers, potters, hatters, and it just goes on and on down. Gunsmiths, stone carvers, saddlers, the whole list of just everyday common people that made America great. So I wanted to tell you about this and call your attention to this book. I'm sure you can find it in your local libraries. But remember, we come to what we are. We come from what we are to be. So we came from Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Jesus. Okay? And now we are over here with Abraham, Isaac, Jesus, George Washington, and Ronald Reagan, and President Abraham Lincoln, and President Trump. So we come from a long nation, and we call them our fathers. So have a great day in the Lord, and remember that we are what we were, that the Bible takes us through what was into what it is, because it was is now. So when you read in Genesis, think about it. And when you get to Revelations, think about it. So have a great day in the Lord. And if you don't know Jesus, please call on him today. He loves you very much. And this country needs all of us, every one of us. And if you've been on the left crying and whining, and you'd like to come over and smile and have a good time with the rest of us, we would love for you to join us. Thank you for listening today, and I hope you got something out of this.